Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into the remarkable realm of Redwood's national and state parks.
Mhm.
This isn't just one single place, but actually a really interesting partnership between the National Park Service and California state parks.
Yeah, and their main goal, working together, is safeguarding almost half of the world's remaining old-growth coast redwoods. The Sequoia sempervirens.
Incredible trees.
And that teamwork, it really lets them pool their resources,
Hmm.
state and federal, working towards this one huge goal. It's pretty effective.
Exactly. And it's not just about the redwoods, right? I mean, the protected area covers this amazing range of
Oh,
ecosystems.
totally. You've got miles of untouched coastline, wild rivers, these big open prairies, even oak woodlands.
It's so diverse and globally important too. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and an International Biosphere Reserve.
Right.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to really get a handle on why RNSP is so significant. We've looked at a lot of info on the trees themselves, the biodiversity, the geology underneath it all.
The human history, which is really long and complex.
Yeah, what you can do there as a visitor and what's happening now with conservation. Think of this as your fast track to getting up to speed on this incredible place.
And it's also, a dynamic place. Some sources call it a living laboratory.
A living lab. How so?
Well, it's where we can study and actually take part in restoring ecosystems that were heavily logged and are now facing, climate change challenges.
Right. So if you're looking to learn a lot quickly, get ready for some surprising facts and maybe some aha moments, but without getting buried in details. Let's jump in.
Yeah.
First things first, the stars of the show.
Sure.
The coast redwoods, Sequoia sempervirens, just genuine marvels.
They really are. I mean, the first thing that hits you is just their sheer size. They're the tallest living things on Earth.
Right, routinely over 300 feet. And Hyperion, what is that? Almost 380 feet.
Just shy of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Astounding. And it's not just height. Their lifespan, over 2,000 years, is common.
2 millennia. Imagine what one tree has seen.
Exactly. Centuries of change, climate shifts, human history unfolding. It's like a living monument. And recent studies suggest their biomass, the total living matter, might be like 30% bigger than we thought.
Wow. So even better at storing carbon?
Huge carbon sinks, yeah.
Incredible. But it's more than just size and age. They have these amazing adaptations, right? Like that bark.
Oh, the bark is incredible. It can be a foot thick on mature trees.
A foot thick.
Yeah, like natural fire armor. It's fibrous, full of tannins, and here's the key. It doesn't have much flammable resin like pine trees do.
So it doesn't burn easily. And fires can actually create those hollows at the base. Goose pens.
Exactly. And those hollows then become habitat for animals. It's a really neat adaptation to an environment where fire is natural.
Huh. And what about how they interact with the fog? That's pretty unique too.
Oh, yeah. The fog interaction is critical. Their needles, their leaves, can actually absorb moisture right out of the air.
Really? So they drink the fog.
Essentially, yeah. The key water source, especially in dry summers. Plus, they condense fog into droplets that drip down and water the forest floor. They even release these compounds, terpenes.
Terpenes.
Yeah, and they actually help form fog. So the trees are actively cooling and moistening their own environment.
They make their own weather. That's wild. And for trees that tall, the roots are surprisingly shallow.
They are, yeah, usually only like 6 to 12 feet deep.
Seems precarious.
But what they lack in depth, they make up for in width. The roots spread out maybe 100 feet sideways,
100 foot.
easily,
Yeah.
and they intertwine with the roots of neighboring redwoods. It creates this massive, interconnected underground mat.
So they hold each other up.
Exactly. Mutual support against wind, and they can even share resources through that network. It really challenges that idea of the lone, strong tree.
It's a community. And they resist rot and bugs too.
Yep. Again, thanks to those cannons, high tannin content makes the wood very durable and unappetizing to most insects and fungi. They're just built to last.
Okay, so how do they reproduce? It's not just seeds, is it? They have tiny cones?
Tiny cones, tiny seeds. Seed reproduction happens, but they're really good at vegetative reproduction. Sprouting.
Sprouting. From where?
From the burl, that knobbly growth at the base.
Yeah.
Or even from buds on the trunk or branches, especially if the tree's been damaged, like by fire or falling.
Ah, and that's how you get those fairy rings, right? Circles of trees.
Exactly. Often they're clones sprouting up around a parent tree, sometimes an old stump, creates these little family circles. Though you still get genetic diversity from seedlings establishing within those rings, too.
Fascinating. Okay, ecologically speaking, these trees are fundamental, keystone species.
Absolutely. Their presence dictates the whole forest structure. That massive, multi-layered canopy creates all these different niches underneath.
And things live way up in the canopy too, right? Not just birds.
Oh, for sure. Over centuries, soil actually develops way up on the huge branches. Canopy soils,
Soil in the sky.
pretty much. And it supports whole communities of epiphytes, ferns, mosses, huckleberries, sometimes even other small trees. And get this, there are salamanders, wandering salamanders, that live their entire lives up there.
Canopy condos for salamanders. That's incredible. And given our current climate situation, people call them climate change heroes.
And rightly so. Their sheer size and longevity mean they lock up enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, more than any other tree type.
And they're growing faster now.
Research suggests yes, since the 1970s, likely due to more CO2 in the atmosphere, which is interesting, assuming they still have enough water and nutrients to support that growth.
So they're actively responding, sequestering carbon. And they help with water too.
Definitely. Those widespread root systems stabilize the soil, prevent erosion, keep streams running clean and cool. That's critical for fish like coho salmon.
But that incredible wood, that also made them a target.
Exactly. That's the tragic irony. Over 95% of the original old growth was logged.
95%.
It really drives home how precious the protected groves in RNSP are. Just remnants, really.
Okay, so the redwoods themselves are obviously incredible, but like we said, RNSP is way more than just redwood groves. Let's talk about that mosaic of ecosystems.
Right, so you have the classic old-growth redwood forest, dominated by Sequoia sempervirens, very shaded, cool, damp. Thick layer of fallen needles and leaves on the ground. Douglas fir is often mixed in.
And underneath,
A really lush understory. Chinook, madrone, bay laurel, alder, hemlock spruce, cedar. Tons of ferns like sword fern, redwood sorrel on the ground, rhododendrons, azaleas, huckleberries, salal, trillium flowers in the spring, even cool mosses like electrified cat's tail moss.
sounds like a jungle in there. And good habitat.
Critical habitat.
Yeah.
For Roosevelt elk, black bears, black-tailed deer, and those threatened birds we mentioned, the northern spotted owl and the marbled murrelet, which actually nests high in the old-growth canopy.
Wow. Okay, then moving out towards the ocean, a totally different world, that pristine coastline.
Yeah, about 37, maybe 40 miles of it. And it's so varied. You get rocky shores, sandy beaches like Gold Bluffs or Ender's Beach, tide pools, sea stacks jetting out of the water, dunes, steep coastal bluffs.
And the plants have to be tough out there.
Super tough. Adapted to salt spray and wind. You see Sitka spruce right on the edge, beach peas, wild strawberries, sand verbena in the dunes, that dense north coastal scrub.
And marine life?
Loads. Sea lions, harbor seals hauled out on rocks. Gray whales migrating past, especially in winter and spring. Lots of shorebirds, seabirds like pelicans and gulls. And the tide pools are amazing. Sea anemones, crabs, all sorts of little critters.
Sounds incredible. And then there are the rivers carving through it all.
Yep, the Smith, the Klamath, and Redwood Creek are the big ones.
Mm.
And the Smith River is special. It's the last major undammed free-flowing river in California.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And the forests along the rivers, the riparian zones with maples and alders, they act as vital wildlife corridors, connecting habitats.
And crucial for fish.
Absolutely critical, especially for anadromous fish. Those are the ones that migrate between freshwater and saltwater, like Chinook and coho salmon, steelhead trout, Pacific lamprey. They need these healthy river systems.
So the forest health and river health are totally linked. Now, what about those prairies and oak woodlands?
Yeah.
Like elk prairie. Not what your first picture.
Right, but they add crucial habitat diversity. Elk Prairie, the Bald Hills area. These open spaces historically were often maintained by indigenous burning practices.
Controlled fire.
Exactly. But with fire suppression over the last century or so, conifers have started moving into these areas.
So the parks use fire now to restore them.
They do. Prescribed fire helps maintain the native grasses and wildflowers. You get amazing lupine blooms in the Bald Hills in spring. It supports the oak trees, too, and mixed evergreen forests higher up. Plus, they're key foraging areas for elk and deer.
It really complicates that simple idea of wilderness, doesn't it? Shows the importance of traditional knowledge.
Absolutely. And across this whole mosaic, sadly, there are quite a few threatened and endangered species.
How many are listed?
The Park Service identifies at least 28. We mentioned the murrelet nesting in old growth and the spotted owl in mature forests. There's also the western snowy plover on the beaches.
And the condors.
Yeah.
They're bringing back condors, right?
Yes, a huge effort with local tribes to reintroduce the California condor. Plus, the salmon and steelhead runs are struggling. Stellar sea lions, the fisher, a kind of weasel, even a rare plant called beech laya.
It really shows you need to protect the whole system, not just the big trees. It's all connected, the fog, the water quality, everything. Right?
Exactly. The health of the redwoods depends on the health of everything around them.
Okay, so underpinning all this life is the geology. Let's shift gears. This area is seismically active, right?
Very active. Extremely active. It sits right over something called the Mendocino Triple Junction.
Triple junction.
Yeah, where their three tectonic plates meet. The North American, the Pacific, and the Gorda Plate. And the main action is the Cascadia Subduction Zone. The Gorda Plate is diving beneath the North American Plate.
And that's what pushes up the mountains.
That's exactly it. That collision and subduction process lifts the coast ranges, millimeter by millimeter, over millions of years. And that uplift creates the elevation the redwoods need to catch the fog and rain.
So the earthquakes literally build the redwood habitat. Wow. And the rock itself, this Franciscan complex, sounds complicated.
It is. It's basically a jumbled mix of rocks scraped off the downgoing oceanic plate. Mostly sandstones and mudstones from the old ocean floor, but also chert, greenstone, even some metamorphic schist.
And it's all broken up.
Often very sheared and faulted from all that tectonic action, which unfortunately makes it prone to erosion and landslides. There's a big fault, the Grogan Fault, that even guides Redwood Creek's path.
So the ground itself is kind of weak, geologically speaking. And that means earthquakes are common.
Frequent, yeah. Most are small, but the potential for bigger ones, magnitude 6 or more, is definitely there. And there's the risk of a really big one, a great earthquake of magnitude 8 plus aid from the Cascadia Subduction Zone.
Goodness. And offshore quakes mean tsunamis.
That's the other hazard, yes. The park has tsunami safety plans and warnings in place because it's a real risk along this coast.
A constantly changing landscape. And those landslides must be a huge management headache.
Oh, absolutely. You've got steep slopes, that weak Franciscan rock, and massive amounts of rain, 70, 100 inches a year, sometimes more. It's a perfect recipe for landslides.
And logging made it worse.
Significantly worse. All those old logging roads, often poorly built, cut across slopes, change drainage patterns, and destabilize things. That's why removing or fixing those roads is a huge part of the Redwoods Rising Restoration Project.
Right. I remember reading about the coastal drive sometimes being closed by slides.
Exactly. It's a constant battle. And then on the coast itself, you had the ocean constantly attacking the land.
Wave erosion.
Yep, pounding against those uplifted rocks, carving out the bluffs, creating sea stacks, those little pocket beaches. And now with sea level rise,
It's getting worse.
the erosion is accelerating. It's threatening coastal habitats and even archaeological sites near the shore.
Now, one really cool spot is Gold Bluffs Beach. Is there actual gold there?
There is. Tiny flakes, but yes. It erodes out of the sedimentary layers in the bluffs, which are part of that Franciscan complex.
Mm-hmm.
Winter rains wash material down. The surf grinds it up.
And the waves sorted out.
Exactly. The heavier minerals, including the gold and dark iron-rich sands, get concentrated by the wave action. That's why the sand looks dark and sometimes glitters.
Amazing. So geology here is all about immense power, constant change, earthquakes, tsunamis, landslides, erosion, and the redwoods have just been standing through it all for millennia.
It puts their lifespan in perspective, doesn't it?
Mm.
Incredible resilience.
Okay, let's pivot to the human story here. It goes back a long, long way.
Millennia before Europeans arrived. This was, and still is, the ancestral territory of several indigenous groups, primarily the Yurok, Tolowa, Hupa, Karuk, Cholula. Their connection is incredibly deep.
How far back does the evidence go?
Archaeological sites show people living here at least 5,500 years ago. In Jedediah Smith Park, there's evidence going back maybe 8,500 years.
Wow. Just incredible continuity. And their relationship with the land was obviously very different.
Profoundly different, based on intimate knowledge passed down generations. Sustainable hunting, fishing salmon was hugely important, gathering acorns, berries, other plants. Their spiritual beliefs emphasized harmony with nature.
Did they use the redwoods themselves much? I read they didn't usually cut down live trees.
Generally not,
Yeah.
but they expertly used fallen redwoods. The wood is so durable. They made planks for houses, often built partly underground in impressive dugout canoes. Bark was used for skirts, baskets.
And they saw the trees spiritually.
Yes, some traditions see redwood planks as embodying spirit beings who taught natural laws. And they weren't passive bystanders. They actively managed the landscape.
Like the controlled burning we mentioned.
Exactly. Burning maintained the prairies and oak woodlands, improved habitat for game animals, increased acorn production. They had politically independent villages, but were connected through trade, marriage, ceremonies.
A rich, complex society. And then the gold rush happened.
And everything changed. Catastrophically.
Right.
Starting around 1850, miners flooded in, leading to violent conflict, forced displacement, massacres.
And disease.
Devastating. Introduced diseases, wiped out huge numbers. Population estimates vary, but maybe from hundreds of thousands down to perhaps 15,000 by 1900. And treaties were ignored or never ratified, leaving tribes landless.
Just tragic. But the tribes have persisted.
A remarkable resilience.
Yeah.
Today they're revitalizing languages, maintaining cultural practices, asserting sovereignty, and importantly, they're collaborating with RNSP now.
On things like restoration, condor reintroduction.
Yes, bringing traditional ecological knowledge back into managing the land, protecting archaeological sites. It's a really positive shift.
Okay, so that's one side of the human story. The other is the logging era.
Right. The Euro-American view was largely about the redwoods as a commodity, timber for profit, a huge contrast to the indigenous perspective.
Was there logging before the gold rush?
Very limited, some by Russian colonists further south. But the gold rush created this insatiable demand for lumber-building cities, mines, railroads.
And the early methods were tough.
Incredibly hard work. Two-man teams with axes, huge cross-cut saws standing on springboards wedged into the tree, moving the logs with oxen or horses on skid roads or floating them down rivers.
But then technology changed things.
Dramatically. Around the 1880s, steam power arrived. The Dolbear donkey engine for yarding logs, logging railroads. It ushered in the high balling era, fast, destructive logging.
And better saws, tractors later on.
Yep. Improved steel, early chainsaws in the 20th century, crawler tractors, big trucks. It all ramped up the mechanization and allowed logging in steeper, more remote areas.
The scale is just mind-boggling. Over 95% logged eventually.
At least once, yeah. Most timber today comes from second or third growth forests. And there was a lot of land fraud involved back then, too.
Did it ever slow down?
Temporarily during the Great Depression, but then it surged again after World War II with the housing boom. It just seemed endless.
Until people started to realize what was being lost. The conservation movement.
Exactly. Witnessing that rapid destruction really sparked the fight to save the remaining giants. The founding of the Save the Redwoods League in 1918 was absolutely pivotal.
Led by figures like Merriam, Grant, Osborne.
Right. They advocated, raised money, started buying up groves to protect them, driven by the sheer beauty, but also the scientific value of these ancient trees.
And women's clubs played a big role too, didn't they?
A crucial role. Groups like the Humboldt County Federation of Women's Clubs were pushing for protection way back in 1908. Laura Mahan and others were tireless advocates. They raised funds, dedicated groves. Their contribution was essential.
So it wasn't one quick fix. It was step by step. State parks first.
Yes, in the 1920s, Jedediah Smith, Del Norte Coast, Prairie Creek were established as state parks, often with the League's help in acquiring the land. Building on the very first Redwood Park, Big Basin from 1902.
And then finally the National Park in 68.
Redwood National Park Act, yeah. Pulled together about 58,000 acres, some federal land, the existing state parks, and some private land acquired through, well, what some called a legislative taking.
Yeah.
It was controversial but necessary.
And it was expanded later.
Yes, in 1978.
Okay.
Another 48,000 acres were added, mainly to protect entire watersheds. People realized you couldn't just save isolated groves, you needed the whole ecosystem.
And that led to the joint management we see today.
Exactly. In 1994, the formal agreement between the National Park Service and California State Parks created RNSP, a unified approach. It's been this long evolution from just beauty to science to ecology to recognizing indigenous heritage.
And getting World Heritage status in 1980, Biosphere Reserve in 83. That really cemented its global importance, a legacy of determined effort.
Absolutely. Persistent advocacy over decades.
Okay, so for listeners inspired to go see this majesty, what's key for planning a visit? It's spread out, right? Not just one entrance gate.
Definitely spread out. You've got the national park lands plus the 3 state parks, Jedediah Smith, Del Norte Coast, Prairie Creek, strung along maybe 60 miles of Cape coast. So yeah, planning is crucial.
Don't just rely on GPS.
Probably not the best idea. Get the official park maps. Highway 101 is the main road through it all. And your first stop should absolutely be a visitor center.
Why is that?
They have all the current info, trail conditions, road closures, weather updates, wildlife sightings. Ranger advice is invaluable. Plus, you get permits there if you need them.
Permits. For what?
For accessing the Tall Trees Grove, definitely. And sometimes for popular spots like Fern Canyon or Gold Bluffs Beach during peak season, they might have a reservation or permit system. Visitor centers have exhibits, maps, everything you need to start.
And there are several centers.
Yep. Hochi, near Jedediah Smith. One in the Jedediah Smith campground itself in summer. Crescent City has the main info center and park HQ. Prairie Creek has one right off the parkway. And the Cushel Visitor Center is further south near Orick.
Good to know. What about some must-dos, scenic drives?
Oh, the drives are fantastic. Howland Hill Road is unpaved, goes right through stunning old growth in Jedediah Smith. Newton B. Drury Parkway in Prairie Creek is paved, beautiful, bypasses 101.
Coastal Drive for ocean views.
Definitely. Davison Road down to Gold Bluffs Beach and Fern Canyon. Klamath River Overlook for potential whale sightings. Ender's Beach Road, too. And though it's technically south, in Humboldt Redwood State Park, the Avenue of the Giants is world famous.
Okay, drives are great, but hiking must be the best way to experience the trees.
Absolutely. There are trails for everyone. Easy walks like Stout Memorial Grove or Lady Bird Johnson Grove Trail immerse you right away.
Good for families.
Totally. Then moderate hikes like Tall Trees Grove, Remember the Permit, or the amazing Fern Canyon Loop.
Fern Canyon looks incredible in photos.
It is. Walls covered in ferns. For more strenuous hikes, try the Boy Scout Tree Trail, Trillium Falls, or the Big Loop combining Miners Ridge and James Irvine trails. Damnation Creek Trail down to the coast is tough, but rewarding.
Lots of options. And wildlife. Where's best to look?
Roosevelt elk are pretty reliable sightings in Elk Prairie, Elk Meadow, sometimes down on Gold Bluffs Beach. Just keep your distance.
Always. Whales?
Klamath River Overlook is a prime spot during migrations. December, January for southbound, March, April for northbound. Look for the spouts. Coastal overlooks are great for bird watching too. And tide pooling at low tide Ender's Beach, Falls Klamath Cove.
Sounds amazing. What about getting away from the crowds? Any hidden gems?
For quieter trails, try sections of the coastal trail that aren't the main loops. Lifer or Ellsworth loops and Jedediah Smith. Cathedral Trees and Prairie Creek. The Bald Hills trails offer different scenery.
Quiet beaches.
Hidden Beach can be lovely. Walk further along Ender's Beach. Picnic spots at Elk Meadow they use, or Jedediah Smith they use area by the river.
And ranger programs?
Definitely check the schedule. They sometimes do kayak tours on the Smith River. Incredible perspective. Campfire programs at the campgrounds. Great way to learn more.
Stargazing must be good away from the fog.
Can be spectacular, yeah. And maybe explore some cultural history. The old fish hatchery, Lions Ranches area. Oh, and definitely go on a banana slug quest.
Uh-huh. Look for the big yellow slugs.
Ariel Umax columbianus. An icon.
Okay, awesome tips. Now let's look forward. What's happening with conservation and restoration? Healing the past seems like a big theme.
It really is. With over 90% logged historically, restoration is the dominant focus. And building resilience for the future. Plus, these innovative partnerships, especially with the tribes.
And balancing that with visitor needs.
Always a challenge.
Yeah.
A huge initiative is Redwoods Rising.
Tell us about that.
It's this big collaboration. Save the Redwoods League, National Park Service, California State Parks. Started formally in 2018.
And the goal?
To restore somewhere between 70,000 and 120,000 acres of logged-over second-growth forest. Basically trying to speed up the return of old-growth characteristics.
How did we do that?
Strategic thinning of dense young stands, removing or fixing those old logging roads to help watersheds recover, reconnecting fragmented habitats, protecting cultural sites.
And it's working.
Progress is definitely being made. As of early 2024, they'd treated over 4,200 acres, dealt with over 70 miles of roads, restored almost 6 miles of streams.
That's significant.
It is. And it's creating local jobs, bringing in funding. But it's a long haul, probably 30 years or more.
Patience is key with redwoods. Now, there's also the ORI Redwoods Gateway Project. Sounds important.
Hugely important. It involves a 125-acre property, a former lumber mill site right next to the park, very culturally significant to the Yurok tribe.
And the tribe is getting the land back.
Yes. Save the Redwoods League bought it in 2013, and ownership is transferring to the Yurok tribe, planned for 2026.
Wow. And there's a partnership agreement.
A groundbreaking MOU signed in 2024. Yurok tribe, the League, NPS, state parks, all agreeing to co-steward the land. Ecological restoration, public access, all done collaboratively.
Co-stewardship. That sounds promising.
It's a pioneering model. Agencies helping with stewardship on tribal land, integrating traditional knowledge. They're planning a trail gateway, habitat work near Prairie Creek. It's about collaborative conservation, recognizing the tribe's role.
Really positive example. Are there other key projects, maybe with the Redwood Parks Conservancy?
Lots. RPC is a key partner.
Yeah.
The Grove of Titans project, building that elevated walkway to protect the trees and soil there, that was huge.
I heard about that. Essential work.
Definitely. Also supporting the Condor Reintroduction Program with the Yurok Tribe and Fish and Wildlife Service. Snowy plover habitat restoration down at Gold Bluffs Beach. They had successful nesting in 2023.
Fantastic.
Plus trail repairs, fixing historic buildings like the Prairie Creek Visitor Center, and huge focus on youth programs, Redwood Corps, apprenticeships, getting kids outdoors, even an artist-in-residence program.
A lot going on, and just maintaining the place must be a massive job. All those buildings, roads, trails.
It is. Almost 100 buildings, 100-plus miles of trails, nearly 300 miles of roads, campgrounds. The deferred maintenance backlog is estimated at $116 million.
Oof. Mostly roads.
Yeah, unpaved roads are the biggest chunk, then paved, then buildings.
Yep.
They figure they need about $6 million a year just for routine upkeep.
So investments are needed.
Big time. There are proposals for major logging road removal, fixing up an outdoor school, the Crescent City Visitor Center, bridge. It's that constant balance. Restore the ecology, but keep facilities safe for visitors.
A tough balancing act. So wrapping it all together, what are the main management strategies guiding all this?
Well, adapting to climate change is huge monitoring impacts, understanding redwood resilience. Managing invasive species is ongoing. Fire management is key, using prescribed fire for ecological health, fuel reduction, cultural site protection, always working with the tribes.
Watershed restoration?
Critical, especially for salmon. And underpinning it all is research and monitoring, like through the Klamath Network, so management can adapt as conditions change.
Sounds like a really complex but necessary approach for such a special place. So, as we wrap up this deep dive on Redwood's national and state parks, it's just overwhelmingly clear how significant this area is.
What really comes through is resilience, doesn't it? The resilience of the trees themselves over millennia, and the resilience of the human effort to protect them after that period of intense logging. It's a testament to nature's power and what conservation can achieve.
Yeah, that UNESCO status really says it all.
It does.
And it's such a story of contrasts. That long indigenous stewardship, then the exploitation, which then thankfully sparked the conservation movement, and now this new chapter of cooperation and co-stewardship with the tribes.
Right, that collaboration feels really hopeful. It's a landscape actively being healed, through things like Redwoods Rising. And it's a place we're constantly learning from.
A living laboratory, like you said. And ultimately, it's a place you really have to experience. Driving the parkways, hiking under those giants, feeling the spray on the coast, learning the history. It's profound.
Unforgettable.
So maybe, as a final thought for everyone listening, the enduring call of these ancient trees isn't just to stand there and be amazed by their size, but maybe to really think about our shared responsibility. How do we ensure they're still standing thriving for all the generations yet to come?
A powerful thought to end on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.